Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening if you're somewhere else and not in New Zealand. Welcome to Freedom Friday again. They come around so quickly nowadays. And yep, today we're going to talk about, talking about coming around quickly. That's a cycle, isn't it? And so we've got this weekly cycle, but Tony's going to talk about cycles that affect also the crypto world. Yeah, it should be fascinating. So welcome, Tony.
Hey,
Yeah,
Gerald. Hey, everyone. I can see there's three people on, but I can't see who they are. So
yeah. We'll,
hi
we'll,
anyway.
yeah. Just say hi if you're on. Just pop a comment. If you're on
Mm.
YouTube, it's on the right-hand side. If you're on Facebook, it's at the bottom where you just put your comments in. Yeah, just say hi, say where you're from, and there we go. Here's Kim.
Hello, Kim.
I like your Kim
It's
Nagan's eye. I like that. That's
nice to
cool.
say. It's
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
when people say hello like that, then I can see who's on and can speak into them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
today, yeah, it's cycles, and history. History is so important. So
it
this
is
is what I'm going to go into today. Was I've been schooling myself up and listening to some other good researchers,
right.
and it's been fascinating. Again, our friend Raoul Pal has been hitting the spot, and
Yeah.
I found another guy called Mark Moss. I don't know if anyone knows of Mark Moss. He's
Okay.
quite a big Bitcoin investor, and he's got some good knowledge. So yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, good. Hi, Blair, Jane. Good to see you, Jane. Long time no hear. Sam and Joe. Good to see you too, Joe.
Yeah. We're all
Uh,
colorful today. That's more colorful
yeah,
than before. I don't know why. Must be a new look YouTube thing.
yeah. So I'm going to get into it. So what I'm going to mainly focus on is the cycles and the history of technology. I'm sort of going to focus on technology, but but when it comes to crypto, one of the reasons why it's quite hard to figure out and why there's a lot to understand is because we really have to understand a number of different subjects and somehow knit them all together. We've got to be good at integrating these different modality or different areas of life. And these key areas are technology, obviously history as well, um, economics, the history of currencies and the history of money, the history of, and not so much the history of, but certainly philosophy. Philosophy is very important. And philosophy is actually a big and underrated aspect of um, money, wealth, and all of that. And obviously, philosophy involves, you could say, faith. Uh, you know, I don't like the word religion, but it's kind of got a religious aspect, and also the the monetary and political systems and monetary systems. These are all very important as well, because everything looks like independent, separate parts, but they're actually all quite integrated and working as a seamless whole. And until we really get to understand the big picture, we're never really going to know what's happening on the ground in the detail here and
Mhm.
now. We don't
Mm.
understand what's going on because we haven't seen the timelines. And so obviously time is a key cycle right
And it's
now.
probably why we are having so many problems today is that we have a tendency to break things up and study things in parts, which is called, in fact, that's part of what is called the reductionist philosophy, where you look into a part and you become a specialist and you're siloed in your field of knowledge. And maybe that's why we are not able to have an integrated a worldview, in politics and all that, and why things are kind of falling apart a little bit at the seams, isn't it? You think, Tony?
That's very
So,
true
yeah.
because education teaches us reductionist theory. I mean, we were brought up on Darwinism and Newtonian physics and looking for little tiny particles and all this. And I love science, I actually, but I had a lot of trouble getting my head around a lot of science until I did physics. And then when I did physics, I thought, that's what I'm looking for. It's about looking at energy, really,
Mm,
and looking at quantum physics is really the ultimate branch
yes.
of physics, and even that has a big factor to play. What's happening in the world today, quantum theory, quantum mechanics. This is the underlying laws of the universe that govern
Yeah.
how we show up, why we show up, how we operate. It's all really on energy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Energy and
Yeah.
time.
It's quantum
Mm.
physics that brought back the idea of interconnectedness of the field, isn't it? Which really blew
Exactly,
everyone apart, blew everyone away back in the
yeah,
early 20th century. Yeah.
exactly. And look, there's nothing wrong with looking at the detail. They
Mm,
say the devil's in the detail. So those detail-orientated people, they're often very earthy people. There's it's great quality. It's obviously it's an element of our existence, but we have to also be able to see the big picture.
yeah.
At least have an intention to look at the big picture, because if we don't see the bigger picture, we won't see what's coming. And a lot of people don't see what's coming to us right now. What's happening right now? There's actually a freight train coming, and it's going to feel like it's going to go straight through our house. I think right now, because this is these are all parts of the cycles. We're in a certain cycle of time that where there's a convergence going on, and the old timelines are collapsing, and this is why it's so scary right now. So yeah, so technology. So I just take an example. Let's look at the cycle of technology. We look at it. Let's take cars for instance. When cars were first invented, the people laughed and said, "Who's going to use these things? They're noisy and they're inefficient." And people still wanted to just keep using their horses, right? And or horse and cart. And a lot of people could not understand why we needed to have um, vehicles, cars, and all that. And so, and then when the first early cars were built, there was a huge to do, and a lot of money went into cars in the earliest stages, and then it flopped. They basically a lot of them lost their money, and it didn't mean that obviously cars now are a part of our life. It didn't mean that it wasn't a great idea. It's the fact is that they were too early. They were early in the piece, and so those early people lost their money. But then, as the next wave of innovation came, and the cars got a little better, and then the next wave of investment money came, then once Henry Ford really his operation really got going, obviously then it took off. So we can liken that to the blockchain and crypto today. A lot of people got into a lot of projects very early and they flopped. But it didn't mean that blockchain is going to flop or that crypto was going to flop. It just meant that we're early, and I would say that right now we are early now, but I would say we're on time right now because regulation is so close and because the mass adoption is so close. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that Bitcoin has been out for 12 years now, and 12 years is a long time in this day and age because technology is evolving so fast. And blockchain is actually a convergence of a number of different technologies. Obviously, it couldn't exist without the internet. The internet was a technology that was also seen as crock of a crock of shit for a lot of people. They thought it was just ridiculous. Um, and then look at it now. And computers before that. I mean, computers. A lot of people resisted personal computers and computing power. Mobile phones is another one. Who would want to have a mobile phone, when they were a big brick and you carry it around in a knapsack? And so, what I'm getting at is that this is applying today. Is that um, technology is about to significantly change our life and the way we transact and the way we interact, the way we send and receive information. We virtually can't do anything today because we are in a digitized world. And whether that this is not an argument about whether it's a good or bad thing, it's just what is. And actually, crypto is going to evolve even further and collide with other technologies that are really booming, like gaming. And then we've got NFTs, and NFTs are going to be linked with gaming, and they're going to link with this metaverse that we're hearing about. The metaverse, basically, sort of like virtual worlds that, whether we like it or not, they're coming because the millennials and the younger ones want it. They want escapism from this reality because let's face it, it hasn't served the young people very well. Us older people, yeah, we had the last of the summer wine, so to speak. We had the last of some really good times where the world was still relatively stable, economies were relatively stable. We had a wholesome kind of upbringing. I know I certainly did, and that's what gives me so much energy today. In many ways, it's because I was brought up by the ocean in a beautiful native New Zealand native bush setting. A lot of all my friends were the neighbours, um, and we ate literally from the fruit of the tree, and that stays with me today. I live on a lifestyle block because it's in my blood. That I still love eating fresh fruit and veg, and having some space and land around me. It really it's what I need actually when I do this kind of work. So yeah, so this is technology. There's a whole lot of technology. AI, gaming. We've got smart contracts and all these different other pieces of the puzzle that are all coming together. And then when we look at let's look at history, history of empires. We have had the British Empire was really the biggest and longest running empire. And then they birthed the company. They birthed the first companies called the East India Trading Company. I think it was. There was the East India one, and there's the Dutch. The Dutch also had
Mm.
a company,
Yeah,
and they were the
Dutch and Portuguese at the East India Company.
That's right. Yeah, and they had these. They were the powers of the day because they had the seafaring capacity, and they had all the resources. But those who had the best ships and the best sailors, like the Dutch were, and the English, and the English also had a lot of influence from the Romans. So these were big empires, and then the British Empire basically fell, and the USA rose out of World War Two, World War One, and World War Two, and now we're seeing where China is vying to be the next superpower. And if you look at USA today, you can see that it's looking a little bit sick, a little bit sad, as is a lot of our country and a lot of Western countries are as well. And this is because of globalization. So they decided it wasn't a good idea to have separate countries anymore. They didn't want that. And they decided empires had had their day. So now we're in this big evolution towards a one world, in their eyes, a one world, not in the spiritual sense. This is in a connected sense through technology and through monetary policy and systems and economics. You can see how everything is sort of becoming so centralized and so globalized that now we've gone way too far. And so this is a massive power grab, and really at the center of it is monetary policy. You control the money. I believe money is the greatest control mechanism of the human race. Is we're consumers. We need to have money to do anything in the world. And I really am. I've sort of got tired of people who just see that I'm on some money bent and all that. I'm just to ignore that now, because if you ain't got a connection to the earth and have some wealth, we haven't really got any energy for anything else. You'll be so busy trying to survive and so busy just trying to get out of the clutches of this globalized empire that's really coming for us now. Look at the vaccine passport. That is how they're going to link up. That is how they're using that technology against us, but we can use the technology for us. And that's the big difference. We have to get out of polarized mindset. That vaccine passport is a way for them to not just link us up to the money system, link us up to their whole entire data system. And I have to say, some of the stuff that I've been reading lately has been quite dark. But you know, there was once a time when we thought that this idea of a planned pandemic was a joke, just a joke, and now here we are. So when you understand globalization, you understand psychopaths running this world, you can understand in some way that this is coming, and so we have to do something about it. And that's where I think blockchain and crypto can play a part, along with us people waking up. So then, look, we can look at the cycles of economics and economies. This is another big picture view. You can see how there's all civilizations have risen and fallen on the back of their economy. Who had the most resources? Who had the most money? Who had the most valued money? These are what's created those empires, and this is why globalization now has come out, because so much resources is now in so few hands that for them it's a natural. This is just a natural evolution to go for the jugular, and basically see what they can do to control us all. So we've had booms and busts. These are all cycles, but they're often a lot of them are engineered. They're engineered, but in a higher sense, they're obviously there's nothing new under the sun, and I believe there is only one actual God or one divine creator in this being. So it's obviously something that is meant to happen. It's meant to evolve and unfold for a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. Truth is self-evident. We're in this situation now, and so the economy now that we're in practically every country in the world is on the massive collapse. Well, it would have collapsed by now, but it's been propped up by money printing, which is another sort of cycle that's been engineered. And they really are trying to move the whole entire system into a digital system. And that has both a positive and a negative effect. But we can use the positive side. The blockchain is the positive side. If a decentralized finance is the positive side of what they are doing. They are obviously attempting to do a centralized version of digital money, and this is where I think They need everyone vaxxed so they can get that passport so that they can then hook us up into that. That is the matrix basically being exhibited as we can see it in real time. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. This is all fact. This is all actually happening. I'm also not a doomsdayer. I don't believe that the world is. I think the world will be fine, despite the fact that we've raped and pillaged it. The world will be fine, but we are. Not all of us will be fine. Not everyone's going to survive this, and we're going to have to wake up real fast, I believe, too, and we have to get with the program. And basically, to me, one big key aspect of that is to get into blockchain and crypto. Even though I admit it's extremely risky, the world is in a major risk right now. So I don't gloss over that. This is a risky game, and there are going to be winners and losers. But to me, it's the trick of the path less trodden. It's a trek through a mountain pass that's very dangerous in a way. But to me, just do nothing and just to stay still and just allow the avalanche to basically bury us, that is not who I am. And I don't think it's how a lot of you guys are as well. We have to do something uh, to just have our money sitting in the bank. I've seen so many reports lately of existential threats to the banking system. That what the banks, what's starting to leak out now is very draconian, and they're basically warning us that there's big changes coming. The debt is just out of control. So yeah, so basically you've got government debt, we've got corporate debt, we've got student loan debt, we've got household debt, credit card debt, we've got mortgage debt. We've got the banks have got also huge. Everywhere there's debt. There's derivative debt. There's so much debt, and they are just propping it up by their fingertips, basically with money printing, because that's all they've got. So that when that finally breaks, then we are going to be entering into uh, another unknown territory and an unknown cycle that's it's going to be was going to be pretty interesting. So that's an understatement, by the way. And so yeah, so then the other big cycle that's really interesting, and Raoul Pal has helped me to see this, is the demographics. Demographics is combined with all these other cycles that are converging. The demographics, the aging population. We've got an aging population that are not spending. Obviously, we've got coronavirus, which has clamped down spending sort of almost across the board. And then we've got millennials who are struggling to find their way in the world. They've got very little assets. They've got very little money. Some of them are doing well. The ones that have gone in technology are doing well. But by and large, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is just getting so wide now. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but if you go out on the streets in Auckland, it's looking pretty sorry and sad out there. There's a whole of a lot more homeless. There's a lot of crime. I see so many more police and ambulance racing around everywhere. A lot of people look very depressed and very unhappy. And but we've got this demographic issue. There's a massive baby boom after World War II, huge baby boom, and now and I'm approaching that age too. I'm one of the later stages of the boomers, and we're coming to a stage where there's simply no money, because the cabal has basically frittered it all away. Even though they've got most of the money, they're still in so much debt because they're so greedy and they're so psychopath sycophants, they wouldn't know how to organise a piss up in a brewery, really, because they're just on a one track. They're on a very low energy control the people mentality, no heart, all just logic. And so, this is where and they've raided those pension funds. The other thing is that basically there isn't any money in the pension funds. Well, it's certainly not in America. I know for a fact that America have pillaged their pension funds. So that you imagine how much people will be pissed if they cannot get access to their money. And then you've got the millennials at the other end who have a pretty bleak looking future. So is it any wonder they want escapism into the metaverse and a virtual world? It's I think not. I think they are so sick of what's happening. They've kind of just switched off completely and just doing whatever they want. And meanwhile, us baby boomers, we're under attack as well from this whole system, where they're literally trying to, you know, basically asset strip us whatever we've got left. So what is the option? What are we going to do? This is a perfect storm, absolutely hovering right over our heads now. And I would love to know what any other options or uh, choices we could make if we're going to protect ourselves from our, in a physical way with our money and stuff. I just see blockchain as the only real option, and particularly decentralized finance. To me, that is like an opportunity which its time has come. And so, we're pioneers. I really understand that we're still quite early, but I think we're late enough to get a pretty good idea of the landscape now. And I think that we need to band together and, as an awakening population, and coming together and then start utilize these tools of blockchain and crypto and decentralization. And then that is what will set the precedent for us going forward. That will be what at least gives us some time to at least keep the wolves from the door, because the system is right there at the door right now. And you know I know we've got to think in a spiritual way. We have to have our mind in the right space. We have to resist this temptation to fall into fear, which is they're doing their very best to get us all scared and independent, and you know um, accepting the jab and accepting all these things. It's not really it's not it shouldn't be our decision to just do it willy-nilly without at least thinking about why is this happening, and there's going to be a lot of consequences if we just all go along the way that they're trying to lead us. It's simply not an option for me anyway. We have to somehow find a way to build. We have to gather together and build a new system, like Buckminster Fuller said, and allow their system, which they are collapsing, let them collapse it, and let us get on with building a new system that's based on fairness and transparency. So that's where I think we've come to. We're at this nexus point. We're at this collision course, and I don't know. What do you think, Gerald? What would you like to add?
Well, you've run through quite a lot. Yeah,
I know.
well,
Well, I know I have.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that the way I see it now is to actually what is it, transfer our legacy financial systems, or plans or tools that we use into the blockchain, because I believe that first of all, that's where you're going to get rid of the middleman. So you are actually going to stop being charged like they charge like wounded bulls, and you'll be stopped from being censored, from being controlled as to what you can spend your money on, for instance. Uh, and yeah, so what I see happening on the blockchain is is really exciting and really encouraging. We've got systems of autonomous organizations where we have more say in what happens within these organizations. We have systems like you say NFTs where we can actually claim ownership, and ownership is really an important thing because over here I suppose it is fairly stable, but in a lot of countries ownership is very can be quite tentative. I mean, you may think you own a piece of land, and then one day the government comes in and says, "No, we're coming. We're building a motorway right here, or whatever it is," and you've completely lost your ownership. So I think what's going to happen with NFTs is going to it's going to change a lot that way, and it's going to help a lot of people. Someone is asking about getting their money out of KiwiSaver. So now, what is the problem with KiwiSaver? Why are people having problems getting money out of KiwiSaver? Um, Once we start having our savings on the blockchain, we have total control over that money. We can take it out whenever we want. We can transfer it to whoever we want. And okay, so they let's have a look. I'll just put up Kim's. I think they recently changed the KiwiSaver rules. I believe you can access funds if you're in a financial crisis, first-time home buyer, and not sure what else. So the
That's
question,
basically it, as
yeah,
far as I know.
yeah, but for Maggie, are you saying that you are actually want to prematurely access your KiwiSaver, or have you reached the point where you can, I suppose, get your pension, or it. I'm not sure what the situation is at the moment. Maybe this is something that we can actually invite someone to actually explain to us, and maybe we can get someone to explain this to the group if we can find an expert on KiwiSaver. So if you do find an expert, please let us know because we want to be able to share this kind of information to you guys.
Mm.
No,
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
think you have to
right.
be under. I looked at doing it myself because when I realized that basically
Mm,
BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street are basically controlling most of our money, including our KiwiSaver
yeah.
and almost all the pension funds in the world. This is what they
Mm,
use to prop up the stock market.
yeah.
It's a complete rort. It's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
complete
Well,
ruse.
I know this happened in quite a number of Southeast Asian countries. I can name one in particular where the whole pension fund was raided, and they went and spent it on on derivatives or options or something, and the whole thing fell apart because the market crashed, and everyone's pensions were lost. So
Mm.
yeah, it's quite can be quite tragic.
Yeah, well, it is, and there's many interconnecting parts in with the pension funds and the monetary system and currencies, the stock market, these other government bonds, which is just how they print money and creates more debt, which we have to bear. It's like they get all the advantages and the people get none. I mean, that's sort of how it is. And then
Yeah,
on top of all of that, we get taxed to the hilt. So
yeah.
is it any wonder that we're in such a spot of bother? And now with coronavirus come along, they're printing so much money
Mm,
that is just it's inevitable. It's what is coming is inevitable because they're spending money that we ourselves they expect us to pick up the tab. I
yeah.
mean, but we don't have any money in the first place.
Well,
Pension funds are
that
basic.
exactly. Well, it's not going to
So
be us. It's going to be the young people. They're going to come
It's
into
the
a world full of debt, which
yeah,
they even didn't get into that debt. It's the debt that their forebears got into, and now they are have to bear that. So that's pretty scary for a lot of young people.
but the upside is that decentralized finance and blockchain is getting massive adoption. It's getting
Yeah,
massive attention. It's getting massive investment, and not everyone who's rich are in with the system or agree with it or are dodgy. I think a lot of
no,
people will be flipped,
no,
and I think a lot of good people who are technologists and who are very, very wealthy. I believe especially those self-made people who have not had a handout from the system, those are the people that are on our side. There are people who are working to get free out of this just as much
yeah,
as we are. And I've seen and not met personally, but I've certainly um, interacted with them a lot from what they're saying on video channels and read their books and stuff.
yeah,
I really do. I believe in humanity will come to the fore, but it seems that we have to be put under this huge pressure. We would have never actually changed if we had not had this COVID thing happen. I
hmm,
mean, that may sound like really negative, but I really believe I know us humans. If we were just carrying on the way we were, it would have just we would have just never actually woken up. We
yeah,
needed a big
yeah,
freaking
yeah.
slap, and as hard as that
Mm.
is, that's what we've chosen to experience because we're here. And
Yes.
this is the greatest time on earth, really, even though it's so much.
Well, it is the greatest opportunity on earth. I don't think we've ever had such an opportunity ever in the history of humanity. I think blockchain, and just to the implications, I think maybe one of the things I think which is really important is that um, over history, money, okay, when it was backed by gold and precious metals and things like that, it had a certain it was a store of wealth. But ever since the beginning of last century, I think since the Federal Reserve started, the value of the dollar has dropped. In fact, it's dropped about 96%, I think, since 1913. So we've been in a state where the value of what we are holding is actually going down all the time. Plus, you add debt to that. It's as you say, it's a sinking situation. Now, blockchain has brought this opportunity to completely reverse that situation, where you can have money or something as a store of wealth that is growing. Plus, it enables you then to get out of debt into a system where you're free, um, and it's never happened in history.
No, that's
So
exactly right. And it brings where there's money, there's always going to be the need for governance. And the beauty is that blockchain can bring the two together, and
yeah,
we can actually bring back a true democracy. Blockchain is going to enable a true
mm,
democracy to be rebuilt because our money is private and secure. Um, you know, total absolute privacy is, I don't believe, is a good thing, but having our money private and having our
yeah,
information private is absolutely essential because if our data is falling in the wrong hands, if it's always open slather to Facebook or to the powers that be, they can do to us whatever they choose.
yes,
And so privacy is actually a natural born right. It's a natural born, fundamental truth and right. That's why
yes,
it's right because it's true.
yeah,
Rights are truths,
yes,
and, and it's nothing to do with left and right politics. I've got to try and instill
oh
it.
well, yeah, I know, always fall into,
Doing,
um, but
we
it
do
also
what's
brings
right because it's true. Yeah.
but the other thing is also it brings security. I mean, the blockchain was built on the idea of trust or eliminating having to trust the counterparty and bring in a trustless system. and with that security. And this will help, I think, a lot to bring the cost of money down. Because, for instance, when you look at credit cards cost so much, the interest rates cost so much because credit cards are so flawed in terms of security. I mean, it's so easy to do fraudulent transaction using stealing people's credit card numbers or whatever. And this cannot happen if you actually have uh, on the blockchain. This cannot happen if you keep your security protocols right and you're in charge of your security. So that's also another big plus that it's going to bring. But of
Yeah,
course, with that,
credit cards.
yeah, with that security, of course, you then become in charge yourself of your keys, your security. So you have to train yourself to be more security conscious in terms of looking after your assets and your wallets and your passwords and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
That's right. To those who much is given, much is demanded, and so we have to step up in self-responsibility. But I
Yes.
might say too, the credit cards are a major cash cow for the
Mm,
banks, and
mm.
they're preying on the people that can least afford it, are the ones
Yes.
who have a
Yes.
huge credit card debt, and they're never actually paying the thing off. They just,
No.
I remember from my days, I had credit card debt on the limit for years, and
Yeah.
all I was doing was paying the interest plus a tiny bit of principle. And I couldn't break that. It took me years to break out of that cycle
Yeah.
of dependence on it. And it was really, it's where I really had to
and
change.
and it's something that the governments, you know, I mean, quietly supported. I mean, they never said, oh, don't, you got to watch out. There was no education kind of programs to educate people about getting into debt or anything. They just, governments kept quiet about it because it was
Mm,
convenient for people to get into huge debt, especially the
mm.
poorer people, who need stuff and they just need to go into debt to have stuff in order to live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It just becomes a downward spiral because you just when you got a job and
Mm,
you get most of your energy taxed away, and then you're having to pay all these other taxes for your cars and rates and this and that, and then if you've got anything left over. I mean, then we've got to pay GST, and then we've got to pay.
mm,
Now we're paying these huge taxes on our fuel because that's supposedly going to mitigate climate change, which is
mm,
the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard. I mean, this climate change and the CO2, you watch, CO2 is going to be the next evil. That is the next virus, if you like, is CO2 users. And they literally want to monitor your CO2 use. That's why they want you on their digital money, because then they can see what you're buying, they can see where you're going, and they can program the money to turn it on and off. And that's obviously not good for privacy, right? So this is why, but on the same basic system that creates their system is what can create freedom for us.
mm.
What creates enslavement is also the same technology that can create freedom. So this is what a lot of people can't get their head around. I know a lot of very spiritual people, very, very gifted spiritual people, but I'm clashing with them because they think that when I bring up about blockchain and crypto, that I'm all I'm talking about is
Yeah.
money, and
Well, I think the counter to that is when you look at spiritual people, say for instance in India and places like that, the people who dedicate their lives to spirituality, they don't actually have to pay their bills.
mm,
They get alms, they get people to, the community pays for them to be spiritual people, right?
mm,
They give up their worldly goods, they give up their worldly ties, and that social contract means that because they've given up their worldly ties, the society then supports them. So that's all well and good, and then they can be spiritual and they can advise people with their wisdom and clarity of mind and all that. However, the people who try and be spiritual in this society, they can't do that. They have to support themselves. And I know for myself that I've been trying to be spiritual for years and years, but when you are trying to survive as well as trying to be spiritual, it doesn't work, because there's always that anxiety. There's always all sorts of things that are in the way. Um,
That's exactly what I had as
you know,
well. I
yeah,
I mean, I've been in business 30 years, and a lot of those years were quite miserable because, I'm running a spiritual store, and I thought that the idea was that you weren't supposed to have any money.
mm,
So I struggled all the time, and because of that, I was low energy, and then really, you know, um, I couldn't really
yeah,
be truly
that's
spiritual
right.
the way that I wanted to be.
Yeah, you're low in energy. That's right. And when you're low in
Yeah.
energy, spirituality is based on having energy, on energy flow. So if there's no energy flow, you're just fooling yourself. You can meditate or try and meditate, but then always the bills come into your mind, isn't it?
So I put
Yeah,
these questions to people now. If people say, "Oh, crypto is just a rort," or it's it's uh, it's all just part of this government, they get it mixed up with this government digital
oh yeah,
money and stuff.
yes,
I say, well, just carry on doing what you're doing, and let's see where we all are in another year when you're hooked up to their system because you're resisting. You're basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
yes,
But and I might not work. My efforts won't work. But I sleep better at night because I know I'm proactively doing something that not only makes me feel better, I can see the benefits.
yes,
And and then and if I became very wealthy on this, I would just be there to help the
mm,
community. That's
sure,
what I'm
sure,
for, is to create something to give back. I mean, I'm not going to just sit
yeah,
on a pile of money. What's the point?
yeah,
But they don't see that. They don't understand my
yeah,
intention.
yeah,
And but by the same token, those who are just focused on money only, and they think this is a
mm,
get rich quick, or they think they can't
yeah,
understand why their crypto hasn't gone up. Gee, it's been 4 months, and oh, it's just gone down. Well, there's another cycle, right?
yes,
And this is why we advocate decentralization, have a prudent approach, be in different tokens that are solving different problems, and don't overexpose yourself to any one thing. And
yes,
remember that everything has a risk. I mean, this is not a risk-free operation. This is not, but
mm,
it certainly makes me feel better to know I feel like we are participating in a new world. We are the
yeah,
early builders. We're the
yes,
early brick. We're laying the foundations for a new system, a new economic system. And I believe that we have enough of the pieces of the puzzle now to put together and give us some, at least a good amount of protection, because what's coming in the next few months, I think, will be quite
mm,
dramatic.
uh,
They're talking again on the news about cyber. They're talking about, the WEF said, oh, you may have find that your bank account will get frozen because of a snowstorm or because of weather. I thought,
yeah, right.
my
We're in the
God,
21st century, right?
if that's not predictive programming, man, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what is.
So,
That they're
yeah,
linking weather with the fact that your money will get frozen.
yes,
They're talking about global warming. Now they're talking about there being massive cold,
your account being
and
frozen.
they're trying to make us guilty. We're
Yeah,
already
yeah,
angry because you can see that something's wrong. I mean, if people can't see something's seriously wrong in this world, you know, well, they're living under a rock. But the thing is, there are solutions everywhere. We just have to
yeah.
find them.
I think, in fact, speaking of cycles, perhaps we could also talk about the apparent cycles of opportunity. So what I think we are seeing is a lot of people are looking for short cycles of opportunity, And this is kind of fueled by the stories of people who go in and they buy a token, and then it shoots up, and then they become millionaires. And I think a lot of people are going into this space kind of expecting that to happen to them. um, Now, the thing is, out of every one person who becomes a millionaire, there's maybe 100,000 of people who did something similar, but that went down. So what you're seeing as are the people who succeeded, but there's a whole bunch of people who didn't. That's one way of looking at blockchain and trying to become rich. The way that I think Tony and I have come to kind of look at it is, I think the sensible way is to place your foundations into what look like relatively stable uh, um, platforms, or things that are happening, in order to look for the long-term cycles, the long-term returns. Uh, and I think that that's kind of a, yeah. And I know some people get impatient, like you said, Tony, but I think that's really, it's like the Jeremy on Daisy was saying the other day. There are people who go into Daisy or into launch pads, ICOs, in order to pump and dump. And in fact, most of the people do that.
They do.
They
Because
buy
we've
in
heard,
order to sell, make a lot of money, get out of there, and then but then they've crashed the project, because that the whole point of the ICO was to raise funds for the project to develop, take off, become a business success. If it had the legs, and then everybody would have benefited. So what Jeremy was saying, look, the way we've tried to do it with Daisy is to avoid that, and to allow people to put their stake in. You can stake for a short time, you can stake for a long time, but we suggest you stake for a long time, because that then gives the project the most opportunity to build itself, use the funds, build itself, and become successful. And then we all benefit from success, which could be way, way higher than the pump and dump guys are getting. So we just need to kind of have a think around that, I think.
yeah, well, the staking is good because it's securing liquidity for the platform,
Mm,
and then it's creating stability, which is exactly what you're saying. And but I do think there's a lot of very immature people getting into crypto. Probably a lot of them are young, and it's understandable because we have been so heavily conditioned.
yeah,
Either the goal is to either get rich, or the goal is to somehow buck the system, or find a way to sort of like kind of get one over someone and all of
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And unfortunately, that is how a lot of us have been bred. And that's how I used to sort of think a bit as well. Dog eat dog, every man for himself and that sort of stuff. But I realize obviously through trial and error that that is not the way to go. Um, so there are some very unsophisticated people in crypto, and yeah, I do see them on a couple of things that we've invested in. I do see them on the EtherConnect platform. I do, and that's unfortunate. We, we try to look for the projects that have got real utility. We look for the projects that have got a great team and have got a great message and marketing, and we try to look at all those fundamentals. But at the end of the day, we're human, and we're not always going to get everything right. And there are other forces at work, which we which we don't always know what's coming.
yeah,
And as far as Charlotte's question about
yeah,
what kind of regulations might be put in place by the powers that be, um, what they're trying to do and what they're going to end up doing, I'm not quite sure. But I know what they're trying to do, they're trying to make the majority of cryptos a security. Now, a security is like a stock. And if they make the majority of cryptos a security token, then that's going to completely that's going to put like that's going to be like a dent squid to the whole thing, and that means that they have got the powers to monitor those tokens very closely, and there's a lot of hoops, so the money will not flow like it's
Mm,
supposed to be a currency, right? A lot of these
mm.
are currencies, even if they're not going to be a global payment currency, they still act like a currency because they're currencies for that project.
But
So we don't want that.
But Tony, don't you think that these SEC, like SEC, for instance, it has only its own jurisdiction, right? Its jurisdiction is the US. So it can't really control what people do outside the US and what happens in China. I mean, there's a huge lot of people in China who are in the blockchain, on the blockchain. So how
Yeah,
could they ever
that's
possibly
true
control that? Um,
because
yeah,
because of globalization, because the
right.
centralization of power, and
So you
because
think they
they
would
get
get
all the other countries.
agreement between the
Yep,
governments, and
they
then they would
they
all try and
this is
yeah.
exactly what is happening now. You're seeing it in real time with what's happening with this current situation. They're working what's called lockstep, and it's just it's for those of us who have really gone down the rabbit hole, like I have. I've seen how they operate, and they basically say, right, if you're not going to play ball with us, you're out. We're not going to do it. They're doing it to El Salvador right now because El Salvador is daring to
Mm,
go, we are going to use Bitcoin as legal tender. And they're even creating a Bitcoin enabled city. Now,
yeah.
rightly, whether who, I'm not going to get into a thing about whether Bitcoin is a good choice.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
but the fact
Yeah.
is that Bitcoin may well end up doing well because so many people perceive or believe that it's the one.
Yeah.
So we can't write it off. But they're trying to create a fully, not a smart city like the cabal want to create, but more of a blockchain enabled city with privacy and transparency and all the good things that come with
And
Timber.
DAOs,
Yeah, yeah,
as
and DAOs.
Blair has mentioned.
That's
Yeah.
right, decentralized autonomous organizations. But the thing is that also when I talk about technology, this is also creating another problem in the sense that everything becoming automated is meaning that a lot of people are going to be out of a job. This is another cycle that's coming where there's
Mm,
already mass unemployment started. There's going to be huge amount of redundant people. The job that they've always worked for that they thought was so secure is going to suddenly not be there anymore.
mm,
But technology and AI and other robotics, this is eating into the manufacturing base is getting decimated around the world.
yeah.
And so this is another part of the perfect storm with an aging population where the governments are broke and they can't afford it, with people going out of work, a widening rich and poor gap. You can see that there's going to be a problem, right? There's going to be this huge um, you know, uh, meltdown of some kind is coming, and I don't know what it's going
But
to
it's
look
also
like.
pushing people out of inhumane, work. I mean, all this manufacturing work is just is for robots anyway, And so, how can we find a way to release people from that inhumane work and go into creative work or some other kind of work that that could create something for them, and perhaps on the blockchain where they can get involved in trading or helping people or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I
So
totally, I
yeah.
totally see that. In fact, as I was sort of talking to someone else, I can't remember what it was. It might have been when we were on talking to Rhiannon. Like now, businesses go and get a plot of land in a business park or where a lot of other businesses are, and
Mm,
people build their businesses obviously on terra firma,
yeah.
on land, and then they have a physical factory or offices, and people drive in their cars and go to their work,
Yeah.
and they do their work, and then they come home.
Yeah.
Well, in the future, it's not going to be like that at all.
Mm,
People are going to build their business on the blockchain, It just they're building businesses on the digital realm, and then they're going to interact with the communities that are based there. Those other businesses that are building on those platforms, like Tron and
Mm.
Ethereum, Polygon, Cardano, all those ones that offer smart contract capability, and even now Bitcoin and XRP and all they're all building chains and ledgers as well, where people can
Yeah,
operate on. So
yeah,
that all the blockchains used to be quite separate. They're all merging as well.
yes.
And this is how we're going to do business.
Mm.
And the marketing will happen in there, and we'll do our contracting and we'll buy and sell. Everything is going to happen
Yeah.
on the blockchain.
You can borrow money, you can lend money, you can get insurance, you can get
Yep.
mortgages. Yeah,
Yep, that's right, exactly. And we're going to have a phone that's going to be blockchain enabled, end to end encryption, and we're going to be dealing with websites like the .crypto websites that we've bought a few of these .crypto websites, where you can literally just provide the web address and people can send money to it, and it's like acting like a wallet. And not only that, you'll be able to send obviously information, but it's censorship resistant.
mm.
So these are the extremes of life are coming right in our face, big time. And you can see how there's a like a parallel reality happening. There's those people who are going one way, and those people are generally going another way. And I reckon the blockchain is kind of like that other way from the mainstream. For the first time in our history, we're going to have a two-tiered system, and the breakaway from that is happening now.
Yeah,
And I think coming back to the regulation thing, I think that they won't. I think the SEC won't succeed. See, obviously, SEC has jurisdiction over America, but SEC has also has a lot of powers of influence to just about all Western countries. New Zealand is registered as an incorporation in the SEC, so that shows how powerful they are.
yeah.
They basically govern all the corporations, and they govern securities. They govern what's considered a security. So,
Mm.
but I think that the SEC in going for XRP is going to be their undoing, and I think that people are waking up. So this is all the good news now. There's a lot of good news coming.
Yeah,
The people are waking up, and particularly in America, they're waking up obviously to the pandemic. They're waking up though to what's happening financially and
yeah.
economically, and they're waking up like some journalists who obviously want to make a name for themselves as well are gunning for. They're on the people's side, exposing the SEC for their overreach and power grab that's going on, and
Yeah.
it's coming into full view.
Woo-hoo.
And America, they're putting it on Fox News.
Well, and it's going to show up the corruption of all
But
those
it
government.
already is.
Yeah.
We've already seen that they wanted to make Bitcoin and Ethereum the two main ones of the new system that would give us, that would be like giving us a few breadcrumbs. And then they were going to try and control the two, because Bitcoin being sort of money and Ethereum being the platform for smart contracts and for building, businesses, the two combined make a very powerful alliance. But we already know that there's another serious competitor to them that's nipping at their heels, with XRP as the payment currency
Mm.
and Flare Network and Flare Finance as their counterpart, their partner, if you like, with the smart contracts. So it's there's a battle happening at the top, and there's a battles happening in the middle with the banks, because the banks are not happy about
Oh
this,
no,
because
they're not.
they're not happy at all, because the central banks are going to looking at cutting them out.
Yeah.
And then you've got what's happening at the ground level, and there's a lot of unhappy people as well. So we're going to be in a washing machine of chaos and all sorts of things happening. This is
Mm.
where our real spirituality needs to
Yeah.
come
So we've
in.
got to
Where we
have our
need to say,
spiritual
right,
compass. We've
yeah,
got to know where
we
we
need
want.
to.
Probably
morally,
one of the first things you need
ethically.
to decide is where you want to be, which direction you want to go. Yeah, you got to have a direction, otherwise you'll
Yep.
get lost.
And we have to get grounded. We have to
Yeah,
get connected to nature, connected to the earth. We have to really get grounded and solid and get right with our partners, our families, our friends, God, if you like, Great Spirit. We have to go within to get the goodies without.
mm,
Otherwise, and the only way the only way through is in.
mm,
Unfortunately, we can't circumnavigate that.
yeah,
We can't suddenly magically go, "Oh, I'm all enlightened now because I read something that it's just turned a light bulb in my mind or
yeah,
whatever."
yeah,
No, we actually have to live it. You have to live it, breathe it, embody it. We've talked about
yeah,
this before,
yeah,
and the crypto thing is just one part. Yeah, admittedly, it's a big part, but it's a one part of a whole lot of other things that we've got to get integrated into our life.
yes,
So I am not here just to talk and bleat on and on about, you know, crypto is the one and only, and this is all you
sure,
need, and you're going to be
sure,
happy and all that.
yeah,
No, it's not like
no, yeah, we've got to
that.
look at it as a whole picture, and
Yeah,
crypto is
yeah,
part of that picture, and
yeah.
also part of the picture is, as like you say, Tony, yourself. Uh, Possibly one finding ways to clarify, to become clear in your mind about your values, your goals, your needs, your desires, who you want to be, where you want to go, and what you want for your children and the future, for the tribe, as it were, and but also to to bypass all the self doubts, like, oh, I can't deal with this, oh, I don't know how to do this, or whatever. You have to really dig into your courage, which everyone has, and say, yeah, I can do this, you know I'm going to do this, and so then move your way forward, explore the territory, just go into it perhaps with a spirit of play, which is how the young people do it. Go into the blockchain, explore the different things that are going on. Don't overcommit yourself. You might commit a little bit here and there and try this out and try that out. You want to try DAOs out, you can actually go and become a part of a DAO and see how all the voting and governance and stuff happens. You can go into gaming and find out how there's some people in some countries who are actually making a complete living out of gaming. They actually go into places like, I don't know, Decentraland or whatever it is. I don't know much about it. They actually go into these platforms and they earn real money gaming, and they put food on their family's table.
Mm.
You know,
They get
uh,
paid to play.
yeah, pay as you earn, or yeah, play as you earn. That's right. So there's
Yeah.
all sorts of things happening in there, and don't just rely on us, but just kind of we are going out our directions when looking at what we like to explore. And I'm going to explore NFTs a bit more and share that with you. Tony explores his things that he's attracted to. I invite you guys to explore the different areas that kind of call out to you, and you can come back to us and say, look, this is what I found, and we'd be happy to have you come and talk and share what you found in these different areas, because it's so wide and so big. The two of us cannot cover it all by ourselves,
Mm. No,
definitely.
no.
So
We're
yeah,
only presenting just a tiny slither of
yeah,
what we. I'm trying to sort of approach it in a whole integrated way and in the wholeness of things, as
yes,
well as looking at the actual nuts and bolts, the details, the crypto itself, and all of that. But there's many
mm,
aspects that we could go into and really drill down. Um, but to close, I thought, sort of talking about cycles. There's also the natural cycles. We look at nature. If we look at nature, we will often get the truths. we will often get the answers that we need. And it helps to balance our minds as we have to get balanced. And, the sun comes up every day and it sets every day. And that's another misconception I think a lot of people fall into. They say time is an illusion, and so, but those people are often wasting their time because they're not valuing their time.
Mm,
When you're there's this conundrum between time and money. When you're really broke, right, what's most important to you is money, not time. That's what you most need. But of all the wealthy people that I've met and who I've read about,
mm.
they when they get wealthy, time is
Time
the
is,
most
yes.
important, and they're not interested in the money. The truly wealthy people, the very understated wealthy, they are some of the most generous people I've ever met. And they very generally do not talk about it, but because I knew their background, I knew that they were, or
Mm,
I got told later. And
yep,
I
yep.
found that they were the most incredibly uh, easygoing, very, very, um, very generous with their time, but they always used to say or write about that time is the most important resource, and they will not waste their time on anything.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
literally have their day mapped out almost to the minute. That's how seriously they take it.
Mm,
And I think for a lot of us, we don't do that. We're so laissez-faire, and we waste so much time getting into things that really are not furthering our life. So I suggest that maybe if you feel that that might be appropriate to you, just be honest and just accept it, and that releases a lot of energy for you to enable you to change.
mm,
So look at the cycles of the seasons. We're going to have 4 seasons in a year. We're going to have we're going to have a lot of different seasons going on in our life from now. In a human sense, we have cycles. We have an adolescent, we have a childhood cycle, an adolescent cycle, early adult cycle, and then as we mature, we get these other cycles, and they're often in cycles of seven. Seven is a very important cycle. Seven chakras, 7 years, seven colors in a rainbow. The universe is based on a number seven, is a big part of our life. It's seven, the sevens. So, I often find if you've got an issue or a problem or a conundrum that you can't figure out, or you're feeling quite, under the pump with what's going on, take your shoes off and get out in nature, or go into the
mm,
ocean, have a swim, have a walk on the beach, or
yeah.
go hug a tree or whatever. I mean, dig a garden. This is what literally I had virtually just a shirt on my back. When I came to this place, I had nothing. I would just basically, and I just started digging the garden and walking around in nature, and I got so much inspiration that really it's what's propelled me to this point now. And I don't just have my shirt now. I've actually got some trousers as well.
That's good to know.
But what I mean. I'm just making a joke, but I mean, I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. But I had a partner who believed in me, and and now I have more monetary things, and and I don't just take that for granted anymore. I don't get frivolous with my money anymore. I don't overthink it, and I'm not like counting my money or anything like that. But I I'm grateful and I appreciate it, and I'm thankful because I've been there where I've had absolutely nothing, and it was the most miserable time of my
Mm,
life.
yeah,
And
I
so what I'm saying is
concur.
it's not just all about money, but if you've got none, and especially if the half the population are getting their wealth stripped from them, then we're heading into some difficult times.
So yeah, so
Mm.
let's work on this together, and let's build up our wealth, and then let's help others also find a way. All those other people who are being challenged, and yeah, and start
Yeah.
a movement.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would love us to just, you know, love this community to flourish. And like I say, like way I see it is as we grow and as we get, maybe if we get wealthy out of this, it's just going to be something that we can help a lot more people with. Because I think one of the things that people will most need when you've got nothing is a little bit of money or resources or food as well, that can just be the nourishment just that you need to
Yeah.
spark people up and get them firing again.
And then once they've got that, then the education to go and do it for themselves, do as you
Yeah,
have done. Yeah.
mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
So you can all become teachers as well.
yeah. So everything is cycles. So
Yeah.
just as what I like to say, the key questions: what, who, um, where, how, but when. When are we in this cycle? When are we in the cycle of blockchain? When are we in the cycle of history? When are we now in our own cycle of our life? When are we in our work cycle? There's so many, there's wheels within wheels. So I just sort of throw that out there. It's good to know who you are, but it's also good to know where we are in time and when we are in time and how we're going to do it and what are we going to do right now and why. Ultimately, why are we
Mm.
doing it?
Yeah.
And those are the building blocks that you can start constructing your life around, and you're investing in crypto and that around.
Mm. Great. Well, I hope that'll that will inspire you for the weekend. Give you something to think about over the weekend. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that was great, Tony.
it's a
Um,
fairly deep one.
yeah,
I'm
but
sorry I
yeah,
went deep.
but
I can't help it because I
but
feel we
yeah,
need
well,
to.
yeah, you need to go deep and then come out, come back out again. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
don't get
some
lost down there.
ideas.
But
Um,
surface, obviously, living a surface, superficial life is not going to cut it.
yeah,
And
yeah. No, no.
I'm sort of ramping up my message a bit because I can see that we're coming to a climax in this
Yeah.
world, and it's going to
and
be
and
quite
we
scary.
all are, all you guys here who are here with us. You might be saying, oh, tell us, Tony, tell us, Gerald, how do I do this, how do I do that? But you are actually on your way to become leaders. And so if you consider that you are becoming a leader and that people will be coming to you, that's going to give you an extra edge to your learning and to your purpose as well. So just consider that where you are now at the beginning of this cycle of the blockchain is going to make you someone who's going to inspire and lead and teach others, maybe in the next 6 months or the next year, or whenever it is. But yeah, it's an interesting time. So we probably need to let you go. Just quickly, next Monday, I think we kind of agreed, Tony. We're gonna do a walkthrough of how to convert your Daisy if you're in Daisy, how to convert your Daisy, and even if you're not, because then we'll talk about Uplift, and you can actually buy Lift tokens. Uh, so how to convert Daisy into Lift, how to bridge that across to a MetaMask wallet, and how to stake it. So there's quite a few steps involved, which I think probably by just reading the instructions is going to be a little bit hard for some of you. So we will actually walk through it and show you. We might make mistakes. We might actually come to roadblocks, but we'll actually get there because we know we can get there, uh, and we'll show you how it's done. Then you can get your Daisy stake and start working for you. And then in the next few weeks, on the 4th of December, I think we kind of worked out. I'm going to do a workshop on NFTs. What's the purpose of NFTs? How to create NFTs? How to buy NFTs? and hi doggy. And
The dog has to get
yeah, 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 yeah. The
wants
dog
to be a
always
part of
comes
it.
along after 1 hour and says, "Look, come on, mate. I want to go for a walk." So yeah,
Yeah,
and
no,
so
she wants to be fed.
that'll be to be fed. Yeah, well, that's the next thing. So NFTs workshop on the 4th of December. We're going to have something fantastic on global unit pay, explained by an expert, by someone who is actually developing global unit pay. So watch out for that. He's going to explain to us the ins and outs of global unit pay and what's happening. There's stuff that we didn't know about, and then when he told it to us, we thought, wow, this is gonna be amazing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that is going to be exciting because we've got direct link to the second in charge of global unit pay. He's a young, very young,
Australian guy.
enthusiastic
Yeah,
Aussie guy, and we can get the real truth about. And so this literally gives us the opportunity to create our own bank outside of the four main Aussie banks and get our wealth safe from this predicted bail-in. If the banks go down, where this bank will be safe. So I think that that should be of some interest to a lot of you. But it's quite a process. But
yeah,
everything's a process if it's going to be worthwhile at the end. But we're really excited to tell you about that, and we can have him on every month if we want.
yeah, yeah,
So we can handhold you and we can get it done. But it's not straightforward. But I've already got my account set up. I've got my physical card on the way. We can literally use our crypto
yeah.
anywhere in the world, convert it to fiat anywhere in the world. It's pretty amazing.
Mm.
So we'll leave you with that.
And that's
And
something, yeah,
yeah,
that's something you'll need to think about in future. Once all your projects start bringing fruit, yeah,
yeah,
where does it go? Where do you put it? So yeah,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us and today, and have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you next week.
yeah.
Okay,
Coming.
see you. Bye.
Bye.